Rome didn't fall because of one bad emperor. It fell because no one could stay emperor long enough to fix anything. Power changed hands so fast that leadership became meaningless. And while rulers fought for control, the empire slowly collapsed around them. At its A-grade, Rome's strength came from a single source: centralized authority. The emperor controlled everything: the military, the law, the economy, and the loyalty of the entire state. When that leadership was stable, Rome thrived. This stability made long-term planning possible. It meant borders were defended, and massive infrastructure projects, like roads and aqueducts, could be built and maintained. Rome wasn't a democracy, not by a long shot. But it worked because power was clear and authority was respected. As long as emperors ruled long enough to actually govern, the system held together. But that stability, the very foundation of Roman power, didn't last. Over time, something fundamental shifted. The role of the emperor changed. It stopped being a responsibility to the people and the state, and it became a prize to be won at any cost. Ambitious generals, stationed on the frontiers with their loyal legions, realized something incredibly dangerous. If you controlled the army, you could control the empire. Suddenly, emperors were no longer chosen for their competence, their political skill, or their vision for Rome. They were chosen by whoever held the most swords. Assassinations became routine. Coups became the standard way to change leadership. An emperor's own bodyguards, the Praetorian Guard, would auction off the throne to the highest bidder. Loyalty wasn't earned through good governance. It was sold to those who promised the biggest bonuses. This era, often called the crisis of the 3rd century, was pure chaos. Some emperors managed to rule for a few years. Others lasted only a few months. A few were in power for just a matter of days, before being murdered by their own troops or a new rival. Rome wasn't being governed anymore, it was constantly being seized. This constant upheaval created a devastating domino effect. The entire government went into freefall. With every new emperor, chaos rippled through the administration. Laws would change overnight. New policies were reversed before they could even take effect. Officials in the provinces didn't know who to obey or for how long. The governor you pledged loyalty to today might be declared an enemy of the state tomorrow. So, what happened next? Corruption exploded. Why would any official invest in long-term stability when the next emperor might just execute you and seize your wealth? Bribes replaced governance. Personal survival replaced public service. Governors stopped caring about the good of Rome. They started caring about protecting themselves, hoarding wealth, and making deals with whomever seemed likely to be in power next week. The empire stopped functioning as a unified system. It fractured into a collection of regions, each just waiting for the next collapse at the center. And all the while, Rome's enemies were watching. They were gathering at the borders, and they saw an empire tearing itself apart. As emperor after emperor turned on each other, Rome lost its focus. The constant civil wars meant the borders were left weakened. Legions were pulled away from defending against external threats to fight other Romans in the heart of the empire. Armies went unpaid because the treasury was constantly being looted by short-lived rulers to pay off their supporters. Defense became purely reactive instead of strategic. Rome was just plugging holes, never getting ahead of the problem. The barbarian tribes and rival empires didn't defeat Rome through some stroke of military genius. They simply waited. They waited while confusion deepened, while infighting intensified, and while unity quietly unraveled. They waited for Rome to exhaust its armies, its treasury, and its will to fight. By the time Rome finally looked outward again, it no longer had the strength, or more importantly, the unity, to mount an effective response. The empire didn't fall in one single, dramatic moment. It bled out, slowly but surely, through decades of internal instability. The lesson here is stark and timeless. Political instability destroys progress. When leadership changes too often and too violently, long-term planning becomes impossible. Trust, the glue that holds any society together, completely collapses. The systems of government, law, and commerce rot from the inside out. No organization, whether it's an ancient empire or a modern nation, can survive constant power struggles at the top. Continuity creates strength. Chaos creates collapse. Rome proved that even the most powerful system in history can destroy itself from within. History doesn't repeat, but it certainly warns. If you want more lessons hidden inside the rise and fall of civilizations, subscribe for more recorded history.